We're continuing on. We're in Parshat Noach. Today's lecture comes on the yahrzeit of the author of the sefer that we're studying, Yaakov
Zev ben Chaim Yitzchak.
Yaakov Zev ben Chaim Yitzchak, and certainly the entire session of learning is only at Neshama, but especially tonight, quite obviously, is only at Neshama. We'll also dedicate this evening shiur to a refuah shlema to our good friend and participant Charlie Broder.
Avram Yosef ben Sarah.
Good, thank you for from afar. Yosef ben Sarah. Should we have a refuah shlema?
Amen.
Just in what we've been trying to do is to bring something from the parsha that we just read in the past week and perhaps apply the same type of analysis to it. We see that we read Parshat Tetzaveh in the preceding week, and we mentioned the garments that are going to be made for the Kohen Gadol and for his children. And when it mentions them, it mentions Aharon, Nadav, V'Avihu, Elazar, V'Itamar b'nei Aharon. That's who the garments are going to be made for. Aharon has a zakef gadol. If you remember, that's something that emphasizes and sets apart. Aharon is going to be Kohen Gadol. He's going to be emphasized and set apart. Nadav V'Avihu, the two sons of Aaron who tragically die in an upcoming parsha, have a darga tevir. They are going to be going down, and then again being paused and separated from Elazar v'Itamar b'nei Aaron, who have a merachat tipcha and a sof pasuk. We're going to continue on with some inclusion of the past, but being separated from the past. So again, a little bit of analysis that sort of would have been consistent with what the good doctor would have said. Perhaps about that allocation of notes to those words. So we're starting the second aliyah. We're in Parak Zayin Pasuk Aleph. We're on page 17 in the Noach section. Vayomer, and he said. So if you'll recall from the last session, we discussed how the details of the notes gave us much more insight into Noah's insecurities and how God was assuaging each one of those insecurities and telling Noah that it was okay to go ahead and proceed. So we have Vayomer with a mahapach. If we'll remember, mahapach is something that gathers things from before and perhaps refines them or brings them to a point, as detailed by the shape of the note. The note again. Focuses things to a sharp point going forward. And he said, when the ark was completed and the preparations of food was nearing an end, God saw that Noach was still hesitant to embark. Yes, embark. Without a direct order from heaven. And he said that Noach had proved that all his work was to fulfill the supreme plan, as indicated by the shape of the reading mark. So we're seeing that we're gathering all of those things that we had before, Noach's insecurities and God's answer to each one of those insecurities, and bringing them forward to the point where Noach can move forward. Vayomer Hashem, God, number 2, God had stressed that by Noach's work conditions would be prepared in advance, which would enable him to regenerate humanity and the entire living world at large. A pashta is a commanding note that moves the context forward. It can draw from what's before it, but certainly it leads into what's going to go after it. The preparation that was done by God bringing everything before into focus now it leaves Noach able to move forward, and we have an extra note, an extra comment on this. At this point, the name of God by kindness was applied in contrast to the harsh terms you mentioned previously. So before we were using Elohim, and now we're using Yud Kei Vav Kei. So we've changed from the Defadin, from the element of strict justice to the element of mercy. And when Noach is finally being cajoled to move forward with the plan, we need that element of mercy. Even if something isn't 100% the way it should be, it needs to proceed, and there will be forgiveness even if it's not perfect. So we see the gentle shift by going from Elohim to Hashem. LeNoach, for Noach. Number 3, just as it was a privilege for Noach to survive, it was also a grant for his descendants to initiate a new civilization from the ruins of the previous one, is pointed out by the bar pitart shape of the reading mark. So this is a katon. So remember, katon is those 2 dots that are on top of the nun, and those 2 dots always tell us that there are 2 things that are going on, or 2 aspects to be considered, perhaps one higher than the other. So just as Noach is going to survive, we're now going to introduce the element of his family being able to survive, perhaps with Noach being on top, the more important one, and his son and descendants being the less important ones. So we have this note that tells you that there's a more important one and a less important one, and we've got to have some type of inclusion of both of those in this, and that comes from the katon on Noach. Bo ata, enter you. Number 4. Therefore God announced to Noach, enter you as the master of your undertaking, without having any further doubts, stressed by the directional shape of the reading mark. This is a mercha. Mercha, as we'll remember, gently leads into the next topic and includes the stuff that comes before it, but doesn't have to completely include it. So bo'ata, you should enter, is again leading from this idea of God having assuaged all of Noach's fears and allowing him to proceed on from there. V'chol beitcha, and all of your household. Number 5, this is a tipcha. Tipcha, if you remember, folds in the thought from the previous group. In order to make, quote, your life complete, you enter the ark, and all your household shall be present with you during the critical period, end quote, as shown by the directional shape of the reading mark.
It's interesting. This is no Mishagas, I know, but when I look at the Mercha Tipcha, Bo'ata v'chol b'techa, it's like arms gathering. Bo'ata v'chol b'techa. Come on, guys, let's get onto the ark.
Oh, that's a nice image.
And again, we see the concept of v'chol beitcha, including Noach as well. Noach being sort of, as we said with the katanon, LeNoach, if Noach is being separated out, and it may be more important, but he's also being rolled into the family, v'chol beitcha. So that's the idea of the inclusiveness of the tipcha here.
Jack, why is there a sluk under beitcha?
There is an accent under the beit.
Yes.
To tell you that is the syllable of that word that gets a pronunciation, because I'll have to think why.
I wonder if the beit.
So this is to tell you actually that the tav in the middle with the shva doesn't get pronunciation. So there is a soft, there's a shva na and a shva nach. There's a shva that rests and a shva that continues on. So either the syllable is going to rest on the tav and it's going to be beitecha, or it's not going to rest on the tav and you have beitcha. So in order to differentiate between those two, you have to decide, is the accent are you going to pronounce the beit syllable, or are you going to pronounce the tav syllable? So this tells you actually more about the tav than it does about the beit. But it's a way of separating out that shva nach and the shva nach. So with the strong bay, with the tzera and the yud after it, that's a strong syllable, so it takes away the accent on the tav. So it's beitcha, not beitecha.
I wonder, could there also be another additional level of meaning? That here, the beit in bo and the beit in beitcha are emphasized like it is in Bereshit. Bereshit was the beginning of a world.
We've not previously ascribed any particular meaning to accented syllables in nouns. Your father hasn't done that before. Accented syllables in verbs will be there quite often to tell you about vav hayipuch, about changing tense of a verb. So that's why they have a necessity. Here, it's more to dramatically emphasize that shva or de-emphasize the shva. So we're on page 17. We're in the section of Noach, Perek Zayin, Pasuk Aleph, and we're continuing to go through.
I got distracted.
That's okay.
I'll be okay then.
Distracted by the suspenders, we're going to go to the box. El HaTeva.
Okay.
Number 6. This is Et Nachta, and you shall all come to the box and jointly find your safety there. So if you remember, Et Nachta is a base of stability, possibly with something looking from above it, which again is the perfect note to accent the safety and stability that the teva, that the ark is going to provide, and the place within it that civilization is going to continue. Ki otcha, and again we have that same makaf on the aleph to tell you that it's otcha, not otecha. So it tells you that the shva in the middle doesn't get its accent, so you have to accent the aleph. And again, we haven't before ascribed any meaning to that, and we'll think if there is any meaning or not. Because with you, number 7, a new kind of civilization will emerge, because with you and with those in the box, a new world will be built and mankind will be preserved along with features of creation. So this is a mercha. Mercha, if we remember, slightly includes the stuff that's come before and leads into what's going to go after it. So it includes all those things that are in the teva, and it's going to lead into the next word, ra'iti, I saw, with a tavir. Tavir is the same as a mercha with a dot in the middle. So if we remember, this is something that's being sheltered from the outside. We have a concept and something that's surrounding it, surrounding it, or protecting it. Ra'iti, number 8. In you, I saw not only an outstanding personality, but also a link between previous and future generations. So, because the mercha is leading into the tavir, otcha, and is leading into the ra'iti, what God is seeing is going to be linked with Noach himself. And interesting that he's not specifying anything more specific to a tavir, anything more specific to the concept of something being sheltered. So I'm not quite clear on why he didn't include that thought or that perspective, because he has done that in the past when he's seen a tavir. But we'll go on. Tzaddik, a just with a mercha, and again slightly including the tavir on the previous word, sort of has a comma, has a natural pause after it, and then we start a new idea where it's telling us, because it's a mercha, that it does include the previous idea, even if it's separated by that comma. So, number 9, I found you to be a just man of significance for whom I was waiting a long time.
It's translated as an adjective?
No, he's translated as a noun. Tzaddik is a just person, right? A righteous person.
Is that unusual that you have 3 of those directionals in that same direction, and you don't have the closing director until Lefanai? So you have Otcha and Tzaddik with a Mercha, and then Ra'iti with a Tavir. So they're all sort of scooping towards what comes ahead of it. Is that unusual to have those 3?
It's not the commonest combination, but it's not so unusual that it's noteworthy. But in the sense of the notes of both the Mercha and the Tavir, remember that both of them do gently fold in everything that's come from before. So this is in keeping with the type of things that we're saying here, that all these people who are invited on the Teva and their characteristics are what is going to lead to what's going to happen in the future. So Tzaddik, again, I found you to be a just man of significance. So remember that Noach seems to be anxious at every step of the way and needs reassurance, and God's reminding him of his position and stature and why he was chosen is perhaps what he needs to reinforce his will to allow him to keep on moving. Lefanai, before me, with a tipcha. So again, this is something that's going to close the previous thought or include the previous thought and directly tie to the previous word group under the last note, under the mercha. Number 10, you have appeared before me as a correct individual, and you have proved yourself to be so. Therefore, I decided to preserve you. So he is taking the word tzaddik, which we would normally translate as righteous, and giving us a slightly different take on it. He's using the word just as somebody who is more in the sense of deen, more in the sense of somebody who is a good judge. Justice comes more from that sense than from the sense of righteousness, which is following a derech, following a path. So when you say lefanai, when you're a judge and you're in front of your superior, that means that you've done your job well as a judge, but he's not tzaddik, righteous in the sense where he would try to be an influence on others necessarily, which is something that we know perhaps to be in Noach's character.
Right.
That he was following the rules very well, but wasn't necessarily being more influential than he absolutely had to be.
That's a very
that's an interesting distinction brought by that translation of tzaddik.
What's interesting is, as you pointed out just moments ago, this pasuk switches the Shem Havaya from Shem Elokim. So, though he's introducing mercy, there's still an element of justice. One might almost argue that Elokim would be an appropriate term, given that the echo later in the sentence is of justice, and yet it's ultimately Rachman to say come to Teva.
Noach, again, as we saw in the last aliyah, Noach continues to have doubts. So he needs to be told of his good characteristics, what is good about him, But by the way, if that's not enough, he's still going to get rachamim. He's still going to get that sense of being cared for, even if he may not deserve it fully. So the switching of Elohim to Yud Kei Vav Kei is exactly appropriate for when he's being judged, because again we see that he's hesitant in terms of his self-confidence. Bador, by the generation, and again that's an interesting translation because normally we would say in the generation, not by the generation. This is a mercha, so it's going to gently bring in what was before and connect it to what's going to go afterwards. Number 11, your trust in God will be continued later by the generation when Abraham will appear and introduce a new spirit that will revolutionize the world. So, in saying that, everything that Noach has done is going to lead forward into something, and that is the generation of Abraham. Hazeh, with the sof pasuk, of this. Nevertheless, at the time of this era, I will bring on a punishing event. Even though God says that the world is going to lead to something better and more fulfilling, this generation is this generation, and they're going to get their ultimate closure. And the ultimate closure comes with a sof pasuk. So even though Alan's not here, in case he listens to the tape, we're going to sing the pasuk at the end of the pasuk.
What is
Vayomer Hashem leNoach bo'ata v'chol beitcha el hateva ki otcha ra'iti tzadik lefanai bador hazeh. We are on page 18, Perek Zayin, Pasuk Beit, Mikol. This is it's got it looking like a mercha, but I think it's a munach. So give me a second. I'm just going to look on the other sefer to be sure. Yeah, that's a munach. So if you want to correct under the kaf,
But it's not munach revi'i in the sense of where there should be a line after
it should.
right?
Well, that's what he's got in here.
That's what he has?
Yeah. That's what was in my memory somewhere. Yes, it should be a munach with a rest, with a stop after it. So yes, and he mentions it in his note, followed by the psik. So Sue, if you want to make corrections, so Mikol is going to have a munach under it, and then following the whole word, there's going to be a psik. There's going to be a line that separates between Mikol and Habahima.
So where would it appear?
That would appear
under the lamed or under the hay?
under the kaf. So
Under
Mikol, so if you want to look in here,
So I have the munach there. That
Mikol
looks
has
at an angle.
yeah,
Right, and then a line.
and then a line right after the whole word,
Oh.
because those two words are going to be separated out from each other. As we'll remember, Revi'i is a note that will emphasize and bring attention to the word that it's under, and sometimes it will have what we had called ministers or officers leading up to it, and if it has more than one, they will be separated by a delimiter, by something that says the one is separate from the other. We are on Parshat Noach, Perek Zayin, Pasuk Beit. We're on page 18 in the section of Noach, and we're on the first word, Mikol. The type in the printed version is a little bit unclear. Under the kaf, it should be a munach, and there's a psik after the kaf. So we're just correcting everybody's texts because it's not clear from the text. From most, we'll remember that munach sort of sharply delimits from things that were before it, and then leads on into what's going to go on after it. Comparable to yourself, the selection from most of the species will be made with the purpose of preserving their identity. So he's separating out the people from the animals. So that's why we have this concept of Munach, separating out the men from the animals. And then it's going to continue on, but they're also going to be on the ark. So we need that. And he's saying that the similarities to the way that they're going to be rescued, but the difference in terms of men and animals being different is why we need a psik, is why we need this concept of a separation between and even another separation between this word and the word behema, because some of the concepts that are going to apply to people are in that mikol, but the animals are going to be separated from the people. Habehema, of the cattle, again with another munach, so it's going to separate itself out from what has come before and then lead into the following concept. The preservation of the cattle will prove to be most beneficial in many ways, both for man and for the world at large, as denoted by the shape of the reading mark. So it's again separated out from the things before because they're ultimately going to have a different destiny, and that destiny is going to lead into what they're going to do in the world. And he translates behema in perhaps the more narrow sense of cattle versus just the general translation of beasts, of any type of animal. Ha-tehora, the clean one. This one has the revi'i, so we'll notice that this is the word that's going to have the focus drawn to it. I'm sorry, we have an extra comment after ha-behema. And B, Rashi says in the name of the rabbis that this indicates that Noach studied the Torah and knew which animals were going to be pronounced clean. I guess he's talking about Tahora. Okay, sorry. So we'll just continue with the comment now. So Noach had to know which ones were Tahor, but Noach was only mentioned to be a just man, Ish Tzaddik, a man of the ground, Ish Adamah, but not a prophet, like Abraham or Moses. How could he have known the Torah? At this point, I will have to refer to my remark at the first sentence of the Sidra, Et Halokim Italech Noach, Aleph Tav, Et, i.e., he knows everything from the beginning to the end by the knowledge of the Aleph Beit, Aleph to Tav, through the first sentence of the primary Torah. Noach possessed sufficient wisdom to decide, because the first Torah was exclusively from the tree of life, from Eitz Chaim, and from the world of nobilities, Eitz HaTzilut, or Olam HaTzilut, I should say. For elucidation, I will quote with great timidity, Elokim bara et hashamayim et haaretz. While I write this is night.
I'm not sure what that last caveat refers to.
What does that mean? And this is definitely from more Kabbalah.
I wish we put it like in a half
Kabbalistic.
sequence of the bed or something. You know, then we make it really
Okay,
pretty.
so I'm going to have to look into that in a little more detail.
Well, I write this as night. He means it's nighttime.
Yeah.
When he's writing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But,
Has he said that before ever?
no, but why is this saying with great timidity?
Well,
That's probably something to do with your mother. He's afraid of
so number one, he's reversing the first two words in the quote. Elokim bara, not Bereshit bara Elokim. So obviously he's quoting from something else other than Bereshit. So we're going to have to find the source, and finding the source will perhaps tell us why he doesn't want to learn that at night.
Like shaving or something.
So I will try and do more research and give a better answer at the next class.
So in the table, did they know it was night or dark, or over that window that's so long?
He had a skylight.
So they had
Actually, it was a gemstone.
They had a light, and we'd said before that it either gave clear focus to the outside or it magnified the amount of light coming in from the outside, but didn't necessarily give any detail. But definitely from the word Zohar, he he derives the fact that it was a magnification of light. So if there was no light, then there would be no light. So when it was sunset, it was sunset. HaTehorah, the clean one, number 3, so a little bit above what we were reading. In particular, the clean one will be a multilateral asset and of supreme value. It deserves to be saved, as pointed out by the broad meaning of the reading mark. So again, the Rivi'i is something that is going to emphasize and perhaps magnify the concept of the word that it's on. So we're saying that the importance of the Tehorah, the Behemah Torah, which is going to perhaps be a source of sustenance for the world in the future, we have to recognize that.